sometimes in life you meet a person that has done some work that really makes an impact on you. And we're actually discussing it, Jeanette and I, the other week. When was it actually we met? It was definitely before the pandemic. We knew that. And it was around when Jeanette had this book she was publishing, just published. It's called The God Makeover. And she was very kind to give this to me because I was like really on a journey. And I think it was by accident. I actually came to that event as well. So sometimes the universe just put you in a place. And I took this book home to me and my wife, and in principle, we changed our diet. We are not religious about the things, but we changed a lot in our diet, especially taking out ultra processed foods. Be very aware about eating gut loving food like kimchi and so on, and smoothies, and that had really changed our whole health, our energies, and so on. And I thought, it was a couple of months ago, I thought I need to get Jeanette on the podcast. Why I've never thought about that. And now we're in December, and when you're listening to this, we're going to be in January, and you're going to need it more than ever in 2024. So welcome to the show, Jeanette. That was the intro to why we're here today.
Well, thank you so much for that lovely intro. Yeah, and I do remember it would have been, that book first came out December 2015. And I felt at the time like a complete freak going around talking about gut health. I think there was the only other person ahead of me at that time was Professor Tim Spector, who had a book out 6 months before me. And he's, a scientist, and he was kind of like trailblazing the way. But I come in as a practical person, a nutritional therapist who works with people. I'm not in a lab. I'm in a room coaching people. And I can see I saw how it was working, having read the science. And then the book was my first entry into sharing it mainstream.
Yeah, and that's really good you said that, because I actually made a note about this. What was different, because I also read, not at that time, but later, actually, Tim Spector's work, and very fascinating that he took a big risk of going out with his profile, talking about something that's principle was not in general medical science was backing up. But what I noticed with your book, and actually why I said to you, it's standing down in the living room together with our cookbooks, and sometimes just to remind ourselves we have to be good to our God, is it's a very practical book. And it's like you have the God Makeover, and it's 4 weeks, and if you do that program, it's going to transform. But I can also remember it took us about a week to get ourselves together after I got the book, and we read it very quickly, because again, it's a very practical book. And then I can remember the first 2 weeks of the program. The first couple of days went very easy, and then the staying power doing it, and then there's something happening with your body. It starts to inject chemicals, or it almost feels like you are down with the flu. And you're drinking ginger water or whatever you're doing. And in principle, I think what's healthy to do by this, because I don't see it as a diet, I see it almost like to get in connection with your gut and actually learn about your body. And I thought that was where the transformation happened for me. So the way I'm eating now, I actually thought I was eating well, but by doing this, I just got confirmed that my gut is full of things that shouldn't be down there. And now, as I told you before we started here, when I eat something the gut doesn't love, I can feel it straight away. It's like there's pain down there, and it takes a very long time to recover again, because you are put chemicals, in principle, or bacteria or whatever you call it, down on your gut. So yeah, so I think this book has really, really it's been one of the most 10 important books in my life, and especially on the health, because again, I could go and action something. It was not just a theory, it was something action. So I think you accomplished that very well. As you wrote that book, could you, for the audience, share a bit about your journey and your approach to gut health, food, diet, how you're helping people to rather change their life through changing their food choices?
Well, if I go chronologically to where I am now, I started life off as a journalist. So, and actually, it's really interesting that I'm here on a hospitality podcast, because I started my career as the hotels and technology reporter for Travel Trade Gazette in 1991. And so I, at that time, was interviewing a lot of the CEOs of, the big hotel companies, and, traveling a lot. But I was sort of talking a lot to the hospitality world at that time. So but it's just funny. But so I was, going to the launch parties of, the, budget hotels that were being launched in the UK, all this kind of thing. And it was quite a full on life, but I loved my career, and I ended up as travel editor of I was deputy editor of the travel editor of the Times. And I was and I kind of peaked, travel editor of the Observer. So I had like this 28-page section, and I commissioned everything that went in it, and the photography. And I did go all over the place, and I was meeting all these deadlines, and I was sort of writing these columns and working in a big sort of busy newspaper office, one of the few women at that level at that time. But anyway, it ended up I had a burnout, and that is when I woke up one day and the body said no. So I
Mm.
literally woke up one morning, and I had young children at the time as well. So never any downtime at weekends either. Do you know what that was like? I was living on coming home from work and having half a bottle of white wine and some pasta ready, the sort of fresh pasta and the tomato sauce bought at M&S on the way, and, eating croissant, standing up on a train on the way to work. That was, my body at some point burnt out. I burnt out, and I woke up one morning, and it was physical and mental, because I felt as if I'd been in a car crash, so my whole neck it was as if I'd broken my neck. And I went to every physio under the sun, and every, osteopath. And I went to all the neurologists, I think second and third opinions, and, and everybody, I wasn't treated very well. I mean, have to say, a cranio osteopath I found was the sort of kindest and had the most empathy of anyone I met at that time. The environment that I was in, it was like, oh, she's not tough enough. She's not one of the boys, can't hack it like the others. You know what I mean? I'm so happy that our whole society has changed a lot since then. But it was shocking. There wasn't even and in retrospect, I now know it was a burnout. And if you only in the last few years have psychiatrists even got the term burnout in their manual for diagnosing what happens, But anyway, so I was physically and mentally on the floor, and I put myself back together. I left my job. I, started, became a at-home mum for a year, which is a lot of work in itself, as you know, but I started to feed myself properly, cook from scratch. I would be seeing daylight, because I used to go to work in the dark and come home in the dark. And I started to see sunlight again, imagine vitamin D. And I put myself back together. But a lot of that was about reconnecting with food. And it was the way I had been brought up, in actual fact, because at the time, so my mum and dad were kind of very sort of into, the 1970s, growing their own vegetables. My mum used to walk around in a Native American, knitted poncho that I was so embarrassed about when she picked me up from school in that. They used to buy their bread from somewhere called Cranks, which was really big in those days. They were the original people eating the beans at that time, by the way, My mum was stretching every meal. We didn't have a lot of money either, stretching every meal. There were like lots of lentils coming into things. In a way, when I started living that life where I was like 110% on career, and not even looking at what fuel was going into my body or having rest and recovery or anything like that, I sort of realized that I had disconnected from all the most important things in life. And what happened after that was I started, and I was quite frustrated about nutrition at that time, because it's like, what should I be eating? How do you eat? And at that time, if you looked, it was women's magazines on shelves, how to lose, 6 pounds in 3 days. And when I it was all about weight loss. There was nothing about the nourishment side of eating, which was the way I had been brought up, by the way. It was about food was nourishment. And so I just got really interested in the subject, and I signed up to university to start a Bachelor of Science 4-year degree because I wanted to learn how to read the science and interpret it into practical things. You know, I want to know, well, what is it that we're eating, or how should we be eating? I don't want just some sort of faddy stuff. I want to know. I want to learn how to research in order to know. And so it was after that degree, I came out from the degree, set up my own practice as a nutritional therapist. And it was over that time, because as a journalist, by the way, you're always digging, you're always researching, you always want to know about what the new findings are. And that's a lot of your job. So I was always keeping, up to date on various, as science papers came out, getting notifications. And I kept seeing this word, microbiome, microbiome, microbiome. And this would get, and I started reading this stuff, and then I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. They're saying here that if people drink fermented milk, it improves their sleep, and all this. They've tried it on a few people with IBS, and and then that was how I started trying this stuff out. People were coming to me, and they would be like, "Oh, I've got terrible, irritable bowel syndrome, and I've got it's gone on for years, and I don't know what to do." And there were two things I started doing with them: was getting them to eat more vegetables and plants, which was totally against the grain at the time, because when I was training to be a nutritional therapist, it was like, IBS, they mustn't have more than 3 vegetables a day because it, will give them so much bloating, blah, 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 blah. But if you started looking at the science of the microbiome, it was key to everything. To have good health, you need to eat more. But the key is in building up very slowly and gradually.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was doing that with people, you couldn't even get kefir in the supermarkets at that time, by the way. So these ladies would be driving from mine to my office to these Eastern European corner shops in London. And they were the only ones selling it at the time, like the Hungarian shops and the Polish shops.
Yeah.
And they would go in there and they'd clear the shelf. How many bottles of kefir have you got left? Right, I'll have them. They buy a month's worth. And they were feeling really good. So that's the background of how that book came about, The Gut Makeover. And so I kind of get out of it all the sort of rubbish that you might be eating, right? And I try and just load into the diet lots of good stuff, right? However, it's just a 1-month reset. And what I really hope now, it is all now more mainstream, but what I just hope is that what everybody now is beginning to realize, and I hope it's very doable, is that we all know now that we need to eat lots of variety of plants. Plants are vegetables, but just as many different ones as you can, and just keep putting in. And the other thing is, we need to start eating live food. And those are the 2 most important things. Do you need me just to go back a little bit and just explain what the main principles of gut health are?
No, I think that's really, really good. Because the thing is really, really interesting is that you had a problem yourself, then you said, "I can't find the answers." I go and get more knowledge, and then actually you were out before anyone else. Microbiome. I think there was nobody talking about that in 2020. Even though still, like, it was when really Tim Spector got a breakthrough, I think, with the Zoe app. And then I think you're so right. Now it just feels like a word that's been there forever. It's not. And I think there's still people discovering that actually, the importance of a healthy gut or microbiome. But it'd be really interesting to hear about, as you said, like, what is all that learning, all that journey, and then what is your approach, and how do you actually help the individual bring that down? Because it's often, whatever you try to change, especially around your food habits or any kind of habits, now we're on one new year, is the staying power. Like, how do we actually make it stick?
It's a really good question. And that's why I work in very small little changes with people. So if you think, so what we now know is the microbiome is almost like the foundation of all our health. So the microbiome are these billions or trillions of bacteria living in the digestive system. And the health and the pattern of that bacteria has an influence on everything from, especially your immune system, but also how on your mental health and also on your cognition. And it impacts, how often you're having stool movements, too much or too little if it's out of balance. It affects your weight and how hungry you get. So what I like to do is, rather than just complicated, if you just take a couple of principles and work on them whenever you can, then you know that you are making that microbiome a better pattern. And the way to do it is, so I'll give you an example. I was going somewhere this morning with a neighbor, and we were stuck in a traffic jam in an Uber. And so she started telling me about what her diet is like. And that's what happens all the time, by the way, when people are around me. And she said, that she eats for breakfast some flatbreads with a couple of eggs on top and some seeds. And then she has a cup of soup mid-afternoon, and then her main meal is in the evening. So I said to her, so vegetables, there's no vegetables in the breakfast and that little soup at lunchtime. Are you sure you're getting enough vegetables? And she said, oh, I have loads of vegetables in the evening. So we then had a conversation and we brainstormed. I explained, actually, for the microbiome, you probably need, you need lots of fiber, and also the pigments in the colors. They all feed the good bacteria in the gut, right? Yeah. But you need probably to have a really healthy microbiome. And this is just a guesstimate of what it probably looks like, but people like a physical thing. You probably need about 1 kilo a day.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, that's before cooking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But if you imagine you get to the evening and that's the only time where a piece of broccoli comes out, you're not getting anywhere near that, are you? So we had a conversation which was just about, look, could you eat an apple with the breakfast? And what could you do with the lunch? Could you swap that for a miso soup instead of it being one of the, like a processed cup of soup? The miso paste, which is fermented live, and then maybe put a bit of tofu in it. And could you have a satsuma alongside that, which are in season at the moment? Do you see what I mean? In that way, so sometimes it's not like, I've got to change the whole diet. Even if, let's say, she starts eating an apple every day, that's going to have a big impact.
Yeah.
Because the apple so it's got the fiber, and the fiber is a food for the bacteria in your gut. And it might have been quite a westernized kind of, not a great diet to start with, but it kind of changes something. So when you said, how do I work? I tend to work slowly and it's called the point of leverage, getting some things going that are doable and you can keep the habits going. And I have changed the way that I've worked a bit since before COVID, because before COVID, people used to come and see me in person in Harley Street in London or South Molton Street. And that's, the West End of London. So they would usually, have a commute to get there. So they'd be thinking about what we were going to talk about on the way. Or if it was, a follow-up session, they were thinking about the stuff they'd implemented and, they were processing stuff, and the same on the way home. And when we got there, we have our session, and then they would usually we'd agree some action points, and they would usually run from there to the Whole Foods at Piccadilly and get some of the ingredients. And they'd be quite excited about getting home and having it and starting it. And so I found I saw a lot of really great progress working that way. However, I have changed the way that I've worked online, because in the early days of working online, people were jumping on the call to me from other calls. They were not processing anything after the call. They were not running into Whole Foods physically. Oh, I must do that at the weekend. Do you see what Nick? You see what I
Yeah.
mean? And then the next session would be, oh, so did you find such and such? Oh, I haven't had time. You know what I mean? And it's in terms of working online now, rather than it being fortnightly as I was in person, I'm changing it to be more dynamic. So I see people like weekly for 45 minutes, and really small things that you can get going with, rather than having 2-week gaps. All I'm saying is I've had to kind of adapt and change the way of working, doing nutritional therapy online as opposed to in person.
Yeah, and I think it again, the challenge, just as you say, become even bigger as we work more from home, or and we don't move as much. And I'm trying to be very aware of that a time of day where I go out for something when I have these full days at home, either just to pick something up or go an extra way around to pick up the kids from school, because suddenly I look at my watch and keep my steps as well, and you find out, oh, I only did 3,000 steps today. And then you just know that's not good, because you're not putting in the bank in a way, which also because you need to get the body moving, like from a muscle or kind of point of view. But one of the things that really grabbed me when I read your book, and I think also when you look through all the other content you have online, is like that thing. I think I was not aware, as I said in the beginning, that my diet, which you call the Western diet, was your word for it, or like ultra processed or processed food, the impact that had. Can you talk a bit about, the Western diet? I think there's become more, awareness. You can see lots of people talk about natural food. But I still think they don't turn around the packaging enough to look at what they're buying often. I still
Yeah, I
think
mean,
when you go into the supermarket, people just buy beautiful packaging.
yeah, and even I get sort of, I trip up on this stuff as well. So I cooked a really nice ottolenghi meal the other day from one of his brilliant books, which are very good for gut health, by the way, because there's lots and lots of variety of, plants in there. Coming back to plants, it's everything. A plant is everything that is a vegetable, a fruit, a nut, a seed, the lentils, the beans, the herbs, the spices, all of those count. And his
Yeah.
dishes, literally, they can be a pain as well, because they've got so many ingredients in them, can't they? But anyway,
Mm.
there was this one thing, and it was a tray bake, I think, with beans and sausages and plums and pomegranate molasses over the top. And I bought some new pomegranate molasses to cook it, got it home, and I thought, oh damn, I've already got one in the cupboard. That was a waste of £4. And then, because I had both bottles in the house, I looked at the old bottle and I looked at the new bottle. And the new bottle literally just had concentrated pomegranate in it. Obviously, they'd squashed down the pomegranates and taken out the seeds, and that's what was there. The other one had a list of about 10 ingredients. The very first ingredient was some sort of glucose, sugar, syrup, and there was coloring, and it was like literally might have been a speck of pomegranate in there. It was a completely fake food. And I had been using that on cooking for a while, and I had noticed my blood sugar levels, where you sort of like like this after eating, and then you have a big slump afterwards. And I was like, oh, oh, there must be a lot of sugar in pomegranates. Do you see what I mean? And it wasn't. It
Yeah.
was because it was a fake food. So, conclusion of that. And then what was interesting as well, the fake food, that was about £1, that one, and the other one was
Yeah.
£4. But do you see how easy it is to slip up? Do you see how
Yeah.
easy it is to feel rubbish? And so it's a real pain. We have to be really vigilant and just start reading labels. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and what do you see, Jeanette, is like the challenge with this, our Western diet? I think you described it very well when you hit your burnout the way you were eating. That's also.
Okay, so I haven't answered the question. What is the Western
Yeah.
diet? So the Western diet is this beige colored diet where we're not eating all these colors, like in the ottolenghi dish, and there were
Yeah.
beans in there which had lots of fiber, and there was like the deep dark color in the pomegranate, and do you see what I mean? If you go back to me when I was that journalist, I would eat a croissant standing up on a train. It's beige food, right? I would eat a sandwich from a trolley that came to my desk at lunchtime. I didn't even leave the desk. I ate the sandwich while I was still working, which is the worst thing you can do for your digestion and your absorption and your energy, by the way. But it was like beige, these ready cut sandwiches with there's a
Yeah.
piece of ham or like a slither of tomato in the middle and a bit soggy. And then for, mid afternoon, they'd be starving because have some biscuits or something. And then in the evening, I'd be getting home and having the pasta with this, from the M&S thing. So that is the Western diet. The Western diet is this diet where we're not eating enough fruit and vegetables. I mean, the best research diet on the planet, by the way, and we know is the Mediterranean diet. And so people are often saying to me, "Oh, what about this diet or that diet? Isn't veganism brilliant?" Da, 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 da. It doesn't have the evidence that the Mediterranean diet has. It just doesn't. I mean, just because like a handful of people, on that Netflix program had high performance, athletes, all with their private chefs cooking for them, of course they're going to do okay on it. But you can't translate that to thousands of people. And I think the veganism thing has been, I'm all for us eating less meat. I'm all for us eating more plants and more beans and, more lentils as your firm do, and I'm so glad to see out there. There's quite a lot of people making it easier for us with the beans and the lentils as well, because they take ages to soak and cook and all that if you had to do it yourself. Life is becoming easier. But, just so the trouble with the veganism thing, and I get so cross about it, is I go in the shops and there's like so much fake food in the fake, there's these, fake burgers and fake sausages and fake this and fake that, and they're full of these emulsifiers and these, binders and all this, and something called cellulose, which is, something that has been shown in, mice and rats, causes a massive amount of inflammation. So, do you see what I mean? The problem is that with a lot of dietary stuff, anything extreme is the one that gets the headlines, and
Yeah.
and it's actually the small things that you can just start doing regularly. Read your label, get some more fiber in your diet, have more fruit and vegetables. Do you know what I mean? And things do irritate me as well. It's horrible being me. So I work sometimes in a WeWork in London. And they have a snack station there, Honesty Bar. And, there are lots of these bars that have got protein in them or nuts or, it's not terrible, the stuff there, because if you are really hungry, it's still got loads of sugar in a lot of it because it's like just loads and loads of dried fruit. But it was kind of, if you were desperate, there was something there. I went there the other day. They've started restocking crisps and these nasty, the nasty sort of, the kind of candy bars and chocolate bars that just have the worst vegetable fats in them. Do you know what I mean? Why are we going
Yeah.
back now? And there's no fresh fruit there either. But I guess actually I did once see there was a delivery of fresh fruit somewhere that was given. I don't know if another company sent it in for the workforce or what. But I'm back to the banana and the apple, but you can't keep them fresh, can you? So, but anyway, Mediterranean diet is fish, it's loads, big variety of fruit and vegetables, often seasonal at that time of year. There are pulses, lentils, there are loads of different herbs. There's extra virgin olive oil, there's nuts, there's seeds. There is some red meat in there as well. And this is another thing that gets me, is that when I first started studying to be a nutritional therapist, I had to look at studies of the Mediterranean diet. And I remember reading this paper, which was all about some island in Greece, a Greek island. And it described, somebody had gone and done the research in a lot of detail of what the Mediterranean diet in the 1960s looked like on this Greek island. And it was, there's red meat in there. Of course, there's quite a lot of fish, and then all the things I've just mentioned. And then nowadays, when I start looking, it's been just particularly recently, last 2 or 3 years, the Mediterranean diet studies, they stopped mentioning the word red meat anywhere in those diets. It's almost like that has become the bogeyman of, of diets, red meat. But it's all about the diet as a whole. Because, some of the red meat, let's not go off on the red meat thing, but, if you were to eat only red meat, it's terrible. It's the fact that you're not having it as a complex. And there's
Yeah.
this whole thing that goes on in nutrition where people want to just pick out one item and tell you it's good or it's bad. And it's not. It's all about the diet as a whole. And often a lot of these nutrients are working synergistically together to give you the health benefit. So, for instance, if you were to eat red meat, it might be good to eat it alongside some red peppers, for instance, because red peppers have vitamin C, and the vitamin C in the red pepper will help the absorption of the iron into your body from the red meat. But do you see how there are, and then that's just one tiny, tiny, tiny example, but there are I think that often, there are all these nutrients, they're team players and they're working together. And that's another reason to eat a big variety of food.
Yeah, and I think also it's like you coming back to, you said it is real food, and I think you take the Mediterranean
Yes.
diet, or the Blue Zone diet, which is popular Netflix series with Dan Buettner and his book, The Blue Zone Diet, and that's really up in the moment. But what I think people miss there is actually it's natural, it's real food. There's no emulsifiers, no preservative. It's actually grown very close to the stove as well. So there is some locality, but that's not key in my view. The key thing is real food has not been really treated or processed or had lots of chemicals on it. And I think there's this misunderstanding actually that you can't eat meat, because I think if we want to change the world and we should reduce our meat consumption, we need to meet people where they are, and that's with taste. And meat, it's such incredible, important, powerful thing in our food to give umami flavors. So actually, when you look at, if you go and watch the Netflix here, you would see they will eat red meat on the Greek island, they will eat fish in the Japanese island, but it's actually not the main thing. It's an add-on thing. It's not the core of the meal. It's not the center of the plate. And I think that's what we need to learn in the Western world. There's these foundational food groups, which would be, your greens, your fruit, your nuts and veg, and you have your whole grains, your pulses, and then you have meat as an additional add-on. That's how I interpret it. And I've seen the power of that when you go out and create menus like that to people, and people love it because you then can actually give them something tasty, and we choose things because they're tasty.
Absolutely. And also just coming back to the grains, in the Western diet, where it's all sort of like, white rice, white bread, the sort of, and also just that we eat wheat all the way through. By the way, wheat isn't terrible. It's just that we're not eating variety. Okay. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed over the last couple of years is really exploring other grains as well. So like last night, I cooked a Chinese meal at home, and I made black rice in the rice cooker instead of white
Mm.
rice. And I love white rice, by the way, but you can eat it every single day. And that's a whole sort of like portion where you can swap something out for something like really powerfully good for your gut. Because the black rice, it's got these anthocyanins, it's a particular plant chemical in it, and that deep color will feed all the bacteria in your gut. And there's loads more fiber in it as well. And I don't know, I've just really enjoyed things like that. And then I saw on MasterChef recently, one of the cooks on there, she used freekeh on one of her dishes. So, and I've been using that for a while. Have you tried it, by the way? It's,
Yeah.
again, it's got
Yeah.
loads more fiber in it. And it's got this smoky bacon flavor, even though it's because
Yeah.
it's smoked, not that it's got any meat in it or anything. So I think life just gets miles more exciting as soon as you start eating this variety and just getting out of this sort of maybe not being adventurous and there's a big wide world out there, and just make life a lot more fun as well.
And I guess also it's the food industry, which I sometimes have a go at, have almost made it too easy to make the wrong choices. I said, like, because it's engineered around quick fixes, the sugar rush,
Yeah,
the fat used for taste as well, and also driven by costs in a way. So it's a very food cost money, and you would see that in the blue zones if you go and see the Netflix thing.
yeah,
Like, food is one of the most important budgetary costs they have as a family in these, and that's interesting as well. And you see and it's interesting about the Mediterranean diet is the people who lives in these blue zones, they have lots of centenarians, so people live there more than 100 years, and you see these people and you get like a shock, because actually I think diet, in my view, have now not become about just being healthy now. It's also become about that longevity of how is my body's going to work in 10 to 20 to 30 years from now.
I agree. And it's self-care is a big part of this as well, because we do live in very busy societies. So it's about finding small ways that you can improve, I think. And the other thing that I notice a lot that is a problem in our society, with being such a fast society and all the rest of it, is we don't have a chance to switch on the digestive system when we're eating. So it's not just
Mm,
about what we're putting in the diet, it's how. So the smell,
yeah.
or you see food. So if I smell some food, let's say you were to put some red cabbage sauerkraut in a jar over there for me right now, my mouth would probably start watering, because I really like red cabbage sauerkraut. I like a young one that's slightly tangy. By the way, the probiotics in that would be brilliant for the gut, blah, 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 blah. But the main thing is just me seeing it could make my mouth water. Then if I were to open the jar and smell that, I probably would start, my mouth would water even more. And when that's happening, it's called the cephalic response to food. Basically, your digestion has been switched on, and then there would be enzymes, coming out of my digestive system, and stomach acid, all getting ready, like, oh, yeah, feeding time. But can you imagine I think one of the biggest problems is, and I have it myself, is I'm walking around in like every few yards, especially us urban people, we live in cities. Oh, there's the Starbucks, there's, another shop, there's, or you go to the counter to buy some, and it's got, chocolate and stuff on it. You're constantly seeing and being reminded of food the whole time. And when I was a kid, this 1970s family, it's like you had a meal, you had your breakfast, you had your lunch, you had an early dinner, the kitchen door was shut after that. There were no snacks. Our society, wasn't full of coffee shops. Do you see what I mean? It was easier. So I think the environment is working against us. So you, in a way, do have to think a bit more about where you go and what you do as well.
If you were like, here, I wanted to ask you a couple of things about, because we now in the new year, and probably lots of the people that is listening to this really want to find some hacks they can stick to in a way. And we talked a bit about in the beginning as well, but like, what is there, like some super hacks you can give people? The apple is one.
Yeah,
Start eating one apple and do 10,000 steps.
yeah.
And it's like, how do I get actually started improving my gut health or my
Yeah.
microbiome
So,
radically,
yeah,
without even I have to break my neck, because that's not going to stick
yeah,
past January, because
yeah,
then we like the fitness membership.
yes, yeah. So I think I mentioned it to you before we spoke. I have started. I'm writing something called a Substack. So basically, if you go online and you Google "Nourish with Jeannette," basically it's an online publication, and I put my recipes on there and all my tips for eating better. And also I look at pieces of research as they're coming out and explain it really, really simply. So there's lots of hacks there. But I'll just start with one small hack that I recently wrote about on there, which was buy vegetables with dirt on them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So these things might seem obvious, but they're you know, it's a bit harder to do when you live in a city. But let's say you just said in January, do you know what? I'm going to sign up for one of those boxes that come with seasonal vegetables that have been grown in earth or in real farms. And I'll get it delivered. And then I'm just going to cook if it's swede, and if it's turnips this month, I'll make a soup and some roasted vegetables. That's one thing that you could do that would have a big impact on your gut, and I'll explain why. So in one of the articles I've just recently written, it was all about how scientists in Italy. They looked at rocket leaves, and they found that the rocket leaves that had been grown, and this is obvious, in earth, but sometimes it takes a scientific study to tell us it. The rocket that was grown in earth in fields had more bacteria, this healthy bacteria in it, than rocket leaves that had been grown, in these vertical farms, in the air with, these big water systems and all the rest of it. Very clean environment. And basically the rocket grown in earth had lactic acid bacteria inside the leaves that when you eat it, that bacteria gets into your gut, right? So, but the ones that were grown vertically didn't have that really good friendly bacteria for your gut and your microbiome in it. And they concluded that basically we are eating too clean. We are just eating too clean. And the result is, they were saying that's probably why so many people have, immune disorders now. And if you think about in our society, autoimmune disorders and, just our basic immunity with colds and COVID and everything else. But if we're eating too clean, we're not the microbiome won't be in such a great pattern. And that means our immune system won't work as well. And so they were saying, conclusion, although they'd done it on rocket leaves, this probably applies to most vegetables. We need to buy vegetables that have been grown in earth in proper farms, not too clean. Okay, of course. And they found that even when they washed the rocket leaf, they still had this lactic acid bacteria on them, which was good. So, even though you cleaned it off, because they'd been grown near dirt and stuff, that had helped them form it or something like that. So the result was they were saying, but if the leaves had been washed in, bleach, some of these bagged lettuces and things are if it was washed in bleach, then it seemed to kill all that lactic acid bacteria. So do you see what I mean? Conclusion, fruit and vegetables that are too clean are not good for us. So you were saying, what one hack can I do in January? I'd say start looking for dirty vegetables.
And I never actually heard that, but actually it gives totally sense. So for years we had this, it's called Ashurst Organic Farm down here. And if you live in Sussex or East Sussex, you should definitely be able to get vegetable from go to the website. And we had periods where we either, we paused it because we've been on holidays or traveling. And then, when we come back, we maybe buy something quick in supermarkets. My wife, she can feel the day we go back to the vegetables with dirt on. So the potatoes that comes from there, the onions, she says like she can feel the energy lifts. And that's probably, as you say, it's too clean what's in the supermarket. You get your veg, but you don't get the last bit, because lots of this is all about energy as well. It's not just about, your health and longevity. It's about the energy you have to meet the day, for me as well, like, because we live in an insane fast moving world. And if you're a business owner, or especially in the food world, you are just under this constant mental load of things. And then if your gut is not working optimal, you can definitely feel that when you have to make important decisions. And you always have to make important decisions when you don't feel like it, because then actually just having a healthy gut have actually definitely helped me. But it's really interesting that, again, coming back to the dirty vegetables, and we know now, we actually, we have made sure there is a box coming on the first week of January when we are back from Christmas holiday as well, because we
No.
just need to get back. We'll also find it on holiday because we're going away to a place where it's possible. But it really makes a difference. But I never thought about that. It could be one of the biggest hacks, but it gives totally sense if it comes out of healthy soil, as you say.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a great hack to people out there. Get on a good veg box scheme
Yeah.
out there. That's something to go for. What are you most excited about right now, Jeanette? What are you working on that makes you really excited? We talked about Substack, which I've seen. It's a brilliant piece. We'll put that in the show notes
Oh,
as
thank
well.
you. What am I excited about? I am excited about, yeah, that is my big thing at the moment. I launched it three months ago, and what I really like about that is that I can connect with readers. We're doing a monthly meetup on Zoom. I've done things like teaching people how to make sauerkraut and kefir. I'm doing a bone broth webinar in January. So anyone who signs up to that on the paid membership basically can join these group activities. And I feel that working with people in a group is really, really powerful because the
Yeah.
group helps the group, but also I'm using the technology to reach people, and connect personally. And so for me, I'm really excited about that next year. I'm about to do a little coaching session with people in a week's time about how to, survive Christmas on the food front. So we're going to do that as a group, but I'm experimenting with lots of using the technology, but also like the article I just told you I wrote when I discovered this piece of research about the rocket, sharing it in really easy to understand language. And I know people are really busy. And so I'm trying to marry my journalism skills where you have to take something complicated and make it very simple and accessible and take into account people don't have a lot of time. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm also going to add an answer on here about what I'm not excited about. I'm really sick of all the gut washing that's going on. So, like
Mm.
greenwashing, gut
Yeah.
is what I call personally gut washing. I'm so sick of it, right? So, I was talking about the sauerkraut because when you ferment the red cabbage, for instance, it produces lots and lots of probiotics. And those are, that live bacteria you put in your gut, and it helps with all the things we talked about earlier today. But I'm sick of going into shops where, big industry is jumping on the bandwagon and, saying this is a gut buzzword and then selling people things that are not going to have any impact. So I'll give you an example. I've been around health food stores where they've had a section that says gut health on it. And next underneath it, they've got jars and jars of sauerkraut and also kombucha, which, is the supposed fermented tea. It's delicious normally. It's supposed to have lots of probiotics. And it's at room temperature. So if you see that stuff at room temperature, there's nothing live in there at all, because if it's live, the lids will be popping off because you have
Yeah.
to refrigerate live food so that it keeps it at a stable temperature so it doesn't carry on fermenting, right? And what is happening is, do you see what I mean? It's gut washing. So the sauerkraut there was pickled. I had looked at it which means it's in vinegar and it's a dead food.
Yeah.
Probably tastes quite nice. Also, there's nothing wrong with having a bit of pickled cabbage. It's got, vitamin C, but it's not got all these, the really active, powerful live stuff in it that we're really seeking to. So anyway, that's just something for anyone listening to watching this. I'd just say, so buy your dirty vegetables, but also be very careful where you're spending your money on the so-called fermented gut-friendly foods as well. And go to the fridge section or make your own.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because there's lots of claims. I've noticed it. I saw a snack bar the other day that claimed it was good for gut, mind, body, heart, and health. And then I went, of course, and looked up the ingredients, and there was emulsifiers in. So
Yeah.
straight away, I was
Yeah.
like,
No.
how can you actually get? And I think there will hopefully be laws at some point that the raises that actually it's not good. These products cannot claim this. It's like, it's almost, sending you down the wrong way. There's no quick way to sometimes to fix your gut, or a cheap way. Especially a snack bar will always be, if it's just pure nuts or something else. But again, it just shows, as you see, pickled cabbage is another thing I've always also said to people, like, but that's not a live product, it's a dead product. When you pickle things,
Yeah.
it's actually done to keep for a very long time in winters in very cold places, like where I'm from, Denmark. We pickle a lot because that was the way we fed ourselves in the past, when you didn't have fridges and so on. It's lovely, but it's not gut food per se, 100%. So yeah, it's really, really interesting hacks there again, Jeanette. Jeanette, if people want to know more besides the Substack, where should they go and find out more about you and connect with you, and also your new book? I guess they need to check that out.
Oh, well, it's not so new, but anyway,
The newest
a
one.
couple of years ago, I brought this out. So, and I haven't spoken about it today. It's called the 10-hour diet. It's about the time restricted eating. Just if I had to cut it down into one sentence, basically, we all need to eat earlier in the evening. And then that
Yeah.
means you have a long stretch without food. And then that gives your gut time to recover and for the bacteria to start regenerating. So having a rest from eating is really good, as well as getting the right stuff in. But that book does explain, because with that time restricted in eating, again, there's so much mad stuff going on with it. People think the longer, the better, the harder. It's not the case. And so I talk about what the sweet spot is in there. So that's that book. And the main way to find me is to go to my website, which is JeannetteHyde.com, 2 N's and 2 T's. And then also the online work I do with individuals, information about that there. And also I'm probably in the coming year will go back to doing some more in-person workshops as well, because those are really, really fun. And I think it's really powerful when you get people all together in the flesh.
Great, Jeanette. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your incredible knowledge with us. I send you power and energy for 2024.
Thank you.